This was a message from our partners at PhotoWings. We are really grateful for their support in this project, and we are happy to announce our today's session in continuing education series on the topic of writing. Welcome everyone to a new session of continuing education series at the 7 community. Today we'll explore what compelling storytelling is and how we can impact with good writing in the photography practice. We have with us Aida Cerkez. Aida has been working in the media for over 30 years. When I was listening to the interview with you, Aida, I heard first you worked as a fixer, but then very, very fast transitioned into being a journalist. Aida also was the chief of Bureau of Associated Press in the Sarajevo office, and now you're working in the network of investigative journalism, if I'm not mistaken. So welcome, Aida. It's a pleasure having you here and for you to share the experience you have in writing with us. As we know, you're not just a journalist, but also you wrote books, you wrote scripts for various documentary movies, and thank you for really responding to our request and to prepare this session on writing for 7 community.
Thank you, and I'm really glad to be with you. I hope somebody will learn something. But the way you announced me, even my mother wouldn't recognize me, so thank you. Okay, are you going to do the introduction? Is it my turn now?
Yeah, I think we can start with just explaining a little bit to the students what the session will be about and how will you approach the topic on writing? What will they hear?
Okay, what I understand you all actually are dealing with photography, which is great. It's a form of storytelling, but very often, if not most of the time, you will be forced to write something that accompanies your photos. The better photos you make, the less you have to explain what they present, and the less you have to write. But it's not bad to know how to write texts. And it's all about telling a story. We want to tell the world what we have seen, to inform the world, to educate the world. You have to figure out why you're doing what you're doing and why you want to do what you do, and what is it, what message do you want to disseminate with your work. And that's, a very good question. The way I have not studied journalism. I studied German language and literature, which has nothing to do with what I do all my life. But I was forced somehow into journalism when the war broke out in Yugoslavia, and it came to Bosnia in 1992. And I started helping journalists find stuff, organize interviews, and just be there for them, translate. And very soon I realized that it is actually the reporting that matters the most. It is the public opinion that changes the course of even wars. And it is the public opinion that now really determines history, much less it was much less before, when kings and queens and dictators used to make history the way they want. Now, with media, with the development of media, particularly with the development of social media, it is the public that actually determines what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and that counts for democracies. Of course, every politician is afraid of the crowd and is trying to flirt with the populace so he can get votes. Dictators, on the other hand, autocracies, are afraid of the crowd. And if you make the crowd very angry, it could actually result in a revolution and you're dead. And how this is done? Through media. So media is really a very, very powerful element of today's life on Earth. It actually always was, you know, when you look at the Bible or any religion, it's actually just a good story that made the rounds and makes people believe in this or that version. In the monotheistic religions, actually, of the same story, just the names are tweaked. But the story has been so powerful that it has really influenced so many people and has determined our ethics, our morals, and the development of humankind in general. And in fact, it's just a good story. So this is what you want to do, to tell stories. And I'm going to, let me turn my presentation on, share screen, share. Can I do this again?
It's yeah, it's sharing. I would just alert the students if they will have questions, we will have them at the end of the session, so you can write in the Q&A that we have.
Okay, I can't see any of you, which is kind of weird, but okay.
Yeah, because it's a webinar session, so yeah, but we have over 40 students with us today.
Oh my God. Okay, good to know. So we're going to be talking about writing and storytelling. And writing. You learn to write by writing. And if you find writing hard, it's because it is hard. It's not easy. I have never written, it's manageable. And here is how it's manageable. When the war started, I had not written. I started working for the Associated Press. And before that, I had not written anything in my life except maybe essays in high school and on the university, and perhaps, I don't know, 3 love letters to 3 guys, and all 3 dumped me. So it wasn't really very good. But when I started fixing for Associated Press journalists, I realized that they would come in to besiege Sarajevo. I would explain to them what's going on here, who is who, tell them stories that should be told, arranged interviews with relevant people, go to an interview with them, ask the questions. Seriously, I was asking the questions and then translating the answers. And then when I saw that all they do is just everything I have done, they turn it into a story, I figured, I can do this. So I started writing my own stories, and they really were bad at the beginning, but people had enough patience to put up with me. And when so I started in August 92, and you know, with a gun against your head and nothing else to do, you kind of become a writer within a year. As a matter of fact, at the end of the 1993, I not only was a writer for the Associated Press, I was the bureau chief and the main editor. It's unbelievable, but you know, yeah. This is not because I'm very talented. It's just because the situation was such that I was forced to do something with myself, and that's what I did. So, first of all, before you even before you even sit down to write something, you have to figure out what you're trying to say. And as you write, you have to constantly ask yourself, what is it that I'm trying to say? And surprisingly, often the writer doesn't know what he wants to say. Just look at what you have written, and once you have figured out what you want to say, look at what you have written and see, have I actually said what I wanted? And what I wanted to say and what I have written, is it actually clear to someone who hears this for the first time? And if it's not, then some fuzz has worked in its way to the machinery, and you will you will see the fuzz in your own story. But the secret of every good writing is to strip every sentence to its cleanest components. Because if you complicate things, especially with social media, you want to say something and your story will appear as people scroll as a little window squeezed in between, I don't know, a cute cat video, and underneath is, I don't know, a cute baby falling asleep while eating spaghetti, and people click on that. You have to be you're competing with cute babies and cute cats. And to get people's attentions, you have a few seconds. It says that the average reader has an attention span of about 30 seconds. I think it's even less now with social media, because people are bombarded by information. So why should they read your story and look at your photos? They either have to be very funny, or they have to be shocking, or they have to be so informative that people don't want to look at anything else but at your story. And what makes people go to your story is usually the headline. The headline sells a story. The headline, the title basically sells every book. When somebody walks into a bookstore and there's thousands of books, he looks around, which one, the title has to really grab his attention. And once it does, he will even give it a try. And then when he opens a book and the opening is boring, no matter what the title says, he will just close it and go find something else to buy. So before you start writing something, you have to first figure out, who is your audience? Who am I writing for? Is it everybody? Is it a niche audience? Like, is it for old people? Is it for children? Is it for university students? Is it for housewives? And once you have defined your audience, you then have to treat the audience and accustom your story to your audience. If you don't know your audience before you start working on your text, write for yourself. Write what you would like to read. And you can later, in the editing process, which is very hard, particularly to edit yourself, you will then somehow accustom the text to your audience. But one of the main rules of good writing is simplicity. When you write, don't use difficult words to sound important, like paradigm and parameter, prioritize, potentialize. I mean, you can use these words if they have a purpose, but the more complicated the words are, the less people are really going to pay attention. And here is why. If you want to tell a story, you have to imagine yourself sitting in a bar with very loud music, with 3 or 4 friends. Everybody's screaming over the music to get other people's attention. That's what everybody does at their surrounding tables. And now you want to tell your story, and you have to start your story very simple and very attractive. I always say Hillary Clinton lost the overall support. I mean, she was overwhelmingly elected by people, but she lost a significant portion of her voters the moment she started talking about fiscal year. Trump got those because he would just come out with something simple and totally meaningless like that. It's going to be great. We're going to make America great again, whatever that means. But for some people who have been plowing all day and working in a car workshop or whatever they are doing, they come back in the evening dissatisfied with their lives because they have to do 2 jobs to make ends meet. And then they look at the candidates, elections are upcoming, and there's this woman talking about a fiscal year. No, what people wanted is somebody to tell them that everything is going to be fine. He used simple words, short words, and short phrases like "Make America Great Again." Obama used "Yes, we can." It's 3 words. It's just very simple and it appealed to people. So that's using short words over longer words. And also when you talk about something, imagine that you're trying to explain something to your grandmother. Try to explain to your grandmother something about computers. You will simplify your language as much as possible to make her understand, and otherwise she's going to get lost in the second paragraph. For example, and try to use common words that people use most of the time. Most people say help instead of assistance, or many instead of numerous. Facilitate is to ease. This individual, this man or this woman. The remainder, the rest. Initial, first. To implement this or that. To do. When something is sufficient, something is actually enough. This is how you talk at home. You don't use sufficient. It was an attempt. He tried. Referred to as called. Go back to simple language. And the same rules applies to sentences. Shorter is better. Cut every word that does not serve a purpose in a sentence. Cut every adverb whose meaning is already in the verb. Simplify. Here's an example from William Zinsser. Let me just put this window somewhere else. During the 1960s, the president of my university wrote a letter to mollify the alumni after a spell of campus unrest. "You're probably aware," he began, "that we have been experiencing very considerable, potentially explosive expressions of dissatisfaction on issues only partially related. What he meant was that the students had been hassling them about different things. I was far more upset by the president's English than by the students' potentially explosive expressions of dissatisfaction. Or I would have preferred the presidential approach taken by Franklin Roosevelt when he tried to convert into English his own government's memos, such as the Blackout Order of 1942. And it read, "Such preparations shall be made as will completely obscure all federal buildings and non-federal buildings occupied by the federal government during an air raid for any period of time from visibility by reason of internal or external illumination." Roosevelt said, "Tell them that in buildings where they have to keep the work going, to put something across the windows." Here you can clearly see that somebody wrote this in a very bureaucratic, in a very pompous language to make it sound really, really important, to the point of people not even understanding what it says. Whereby Roosevelt simplified it as that just tell them to put something across the windows. Be as simple as that. It's mostly people in businesses that have stopped using normal words that we use every day, like the word now. They like to say currently. All our operators are currently busy, or at the present time, or presently. Yet the idea can always be expressed by now to mean the immediate moment. Now I can see him. Or by today to mean the historical present. Today prices are high, or currently prices are high. Or simply by the verb to be. It's raining. There's no need to say at the present time we are experiencing precipitation. You just say it's raining. And experiencing, that's another word, it's the ultimate clutter. Even your dentist will ask you if you are experiencing any pain. If he had his own kid in the chair, he would say, "Does it hurt?" He would in short be himself. By using a more pompous phrase in his professional role, he not only sounds more important, he blunts the painful edge of truth. It is the language of the flight attendant demonstrating the oxygen mask that will drop down if the plane should run out of air. In the unlikely possibility that the aircraft should experience such an eventuality, that phrase is so oxygen depriving in itself that we are prepared for any disaster. Very often, it is a sort of a verbal camouflage. Lawyers like to do that, and courts like to do that. Sometimes you read a ruling, you have no idea what happened. It's just a big, long sentence, comma after comma. It never ends, and it's totally confusing. The language is confusing, and you have no idea is he guilty or not, and is he going to go to jail or not? And what happened? So clutter is the official language used by corporations to hide their mistakes. When the Digital Equipment Corporation eliminated 3,000 jobs, and its statement didn't mention layoffs, those were involuntarily methodologies. When an Air Force missile crashed, it impacted with the ground prematurely. When General Motors had a plant shut down, that was a volume-related production schedule adjustment. volume-related production schedule adjustment. You really need a translator for this. Companies that go belly up have a negative cash flow position. So most of the time, you don't even understand what it means. So it's clutter. That's all it is. Remove from your writing everything that does not serve a purpose. Clutter is the disease of writing. Get rid of unnecessary words, circular constructions, pompous frills, and meaningless jargon. Complex sentences do not add meaning. Exclude the meaningless slang. Duplicate sentences. Strike everything that you do not need. Ask yourself, do you need the paragraph, sentence, or adverb? Then keep it or strike it. Most of first drafts can be cut by 50% without losing information or the author's voice. Now, what I'm talking about is you write a text and then you start editing yourself. And trust me, the editing will take 3 times more time than the writing. I have spent 24 years being a reporter. And during those 24 years, I was every day daydreaming about the violent death of my editor. Because I always thought that they massacred my stories. They took the soul out of them. You know, I write the story like 1,400 words and it comes out like 750. But then I sat down and I looked at what they did. The story actually never lost any of the message I wanted to convey. It didn't lose the emotion. It was actually better. So editing, and now I'm an editor, it is such a hard job. You will be rewriting and rewriting and editing and cutting and adding sometimes for days. But in the end, it's going to be good. Here is what you have to get rid of. When you say, here, example, a personal friend. Can a friend be unpersonal? A friend. You don't say a personal friend. It's a friend. His personal feeling. That's his feeling. He smiled happily. If he smiles, then he's happy. Unless it's a bitter smile, then you can say he smiled bitterly or cynically. But in essence, when somebody smiles, that message, that's a message that he tells you that he's happy. In general, 75% of communication is nonverbal. So when someone smiles, you don't have to say that he's happy. He smiled. Or with the possible exception of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words can be just replaced by except. Due to the fact that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, again, 5 words that replaces because he totally lacked the ability to. That's now even 6 words. He couldn't. Until such time as. Until. For the purpose of. For. You will notice this on TV, you know, very often anchors who have to fill the time, you know, have to fill the program when they talk about something. Instead of now, they will say, at this moment in time. because they have to say something. You can't be silent on television. So all of these nows and all of that is just replaced by 5 words, and it says the same thing. Avoid that in writing, because people don't want to read that. You will have to write your piece over and over again until you're happy with it, because the essence of writing is rewriting. So, lessons. Simplify, simplify, simplify. And remember, KISS. Keep it short and simple. Strip every component to its cleanest component. Every sentence. Let me change it to sentence, because this is stupid. Sentence. To its cleanest components. Words matter. Select the best one. Begin a text and end it with a bang. So the most important parts of a story are the lead. That's the first paragraph. The first paragraph is your only chance to get, apart from the title, to get the reader's attention. If you fail there, nobody's going to read the second graph. So your lead has to, most of the time, preferably, it has to have a scene. And what's the secret of a good feature story? In general, people like to read about other people. They don't like to read about documents, or they mostly like to read about other people, preferably with people they can identify with. So if you manage in your lead to squeeze elements that will allow the reader to identify with the person you're talking about, that's the hook. He's hooked. It has to, texts have to, in my mind, provoke an emotion. Because we have seen very often that, not very often, but most of the time, like 90% of the time, it is the emotion that drives changes, not the facts. Especially now in this era of fake news, when facts don't really matter to people as much, when we are actually, it's on the level of religion. It is what people believe, regardless of the facts. Everything is driven by emotions. And if you have producers of fake news who aim to twist the public opinion into their favor of a political party, of a movement, of a country, of a certain policy, they aim for emotions, because it's the emotions that drive people. So if you really want impact, hit me here. Less here, but hit me here right at the beginning. And if you make people angry, if you make people laugh, if you provoke any type of emotion, people will actually then only start paying attention to your facts, unfortunately. So aim for the heart when you write. And that's what I mean, begin and end with a bang. So you start a story with either you set the scene with something that happened. Boom! Bricks were flying around, and so could hear this deafening sound he never heard before. That's setting a scene. That's you describing an explosion. And that's a capturing lead. when you end the story, you always look, it's called the kicker quote. A quote that or a thought that sums up the essence of the story in the end. Organize your content and use the paragraph structure. So you go one paragraph, you have the lead, then you have the nut graph. The lead is already provoking an emotion. The nut graph is that's the next graph, is giving us the context of what is happening and why we're reading about this. And once you have finished your text and you think you're done with the editing, read it aloud. What I do is I always, when I'm done with the text, I sit and I pretend I'm a podcaster or I'm reading the news. And I even change my voice to make it sound as if I would be reading a report from the field. Today, da, 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 da. And once you do that, you will hear the extra words. You will hear where the flow is interrupted and where the next graph is not connected to the previous graph. Usually when you end a graph, you kind of, it's like a signpost. You somehow hint what's going to be said in the next graph or in the next chapter. And those are called signposts. And if you don't like it, don't be afraid to rewrite, which you're going to be doing a lot. We're coming to the lead. The most important sentence in any article is the first one. If it doesn't induce the reader to proceed to the second sentence, your article is dead. And if the second sentence doesn't induce him to continue to the third sentence, it's equally dead. But it's the first sentence, the first paragraph actually, that counts. The function of the lead. Your lead must capture the reader immediately and force him to keep reading. It must provide with freshness or novelty or paradox or humor or surprise or an unusual idea or an interesting fact or a question. Anything will do, as long as it nudges his curiosity and tugs at his sleeve. Next, the lead must do some real work. It must provide hard details that tell the reader why the piece was written and why he ought to read it. But don't dwell on the reason. Coax the reader a little more. Keep him inquisitive. Continue to build. As I said, every paragraph should amplify the one that preceded it. Give more thought to adding solid detail and less to entertaining the reader. But take special care with the last sentence of each paragraph. That's the crucial springboard or signpost to the next paragraph. Try to give that sentence an extra twist of humorous or surprise, like the periodic snapper in the routine of a stand-up comic. Make the reader smile, and you got him for at least one more paragraph. If you're writing news, that's a different story. The lead in that case has to answer the famous 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, and why. And this is what every lead in a news story must have. Like, the Atlanta Police Department will hold a memorial service Wednesday at Holy Christ Church in Buckhead for fallen officer James Montgomery. So, who? The Atlanta Police Department. What? Will hold a memorial service. On Wednesday, when? Where? Holy Christ Church in Buckhead. Why? For the fallen officer. And if you're writing news, it's really easy. You just answer these 5 questions and you're done with the lead. After that lead, you can go with the context, how, fallen officer, what happened to him? That would be the context, the background. Why we're reading this, what happened? That all goes into the nut graph. And after that, you have, once you have in the nut graph explained what happened to Montgomery, you go with quotes, how sad somebody is, what a great guy he was, said so and so. You give a little bit more background and end it with a nice quote, and you're done. A news story is like an inverted pyramid. On the top, you have the most newsworthy information, and that goes at the beginning of the story. It's in the lead. And the least newsworthy information goes at the end. And that structure was once very useful when they were printing newspapers. So one newspaper has this little square for your story, and the other newspaper has more space. So we used to write stories so that after every paragraph, you can take scissors and cut it, and everything that remains on the top makes sense. It's like a story that, you would never say that there was something below. So editors, people who arrange the newspapers could just cut the stories after any paragraph, and it would make sense. That's in the old days, but it still counts. Here is the structure of news articles. So, as I said, inverted pyramid. The lead is on the top, the most important facts, and underneath is the background. Stuff that you can actually get rid of if you want to. A feature story is different. That doesn't, there's no who, when, where, why, and what. A feature story has to grab your attention right at the beginning. Here's a great opening. I often wondered what goes into a hot dog. Now I know, and I wish I didn't. Wouldn't you read a story that starts like this? This story went on with what is put into a hot dog and how it's produced and all of this. But I found that this is really a great lead. 2 very short sentences, and it's very hard not to continue to read. Or if you start a book, look at this great opening for a book. To the Manus native, the world is a great platter curving upwards on all sides. From his flat lagoon village, I copy-pasted this from, where the pile houses stand like long-legged birds, placid and unsteered by the changing tides. So this is how Margaret Mead describes the Manus natives and their little world and the way they see it. It's a great platter curving upwards on all sides. And that's it. There's nothing beyond. Benjamin Spock, Baby and Childcare. He starts his book on, you know more than you think you do, which is a good start and it's encouraging for desperate parents. Another great mistake is the so-called jargonese. Now, various professions like to use their professional language to convey something to people who are not of this profession, and they use it because it makes them feel, they think they appear more professional and smarter. And the less we common people who are not of their profession, the less we understand, the more they feel that they're above us. And all it does, it just makes normal folks feel stupid. And it's usually very pompous. People want to come across as very important and as very professional. Here is a principal of a school who wrote a letter to parents. And it goes like this: Dear parent, during this year, we will give added emphasis to the goal of communication and utilize a variety of means to accomplish this goal. Your inputs from the unique position as a parent will help us to plan and implement an educational plan that meets the needs of your child. An open dialogue, feedback, and sharing of information between parents and teacher will enable us to work with your child in the most effective manner. Now, what do you see here? He started really pompous. During this year, we will give added emphasis to the goal of communication and utilize a variety of means to accomplish this goal. Who talks like this? Nobody speaks like this. And then he comes down to earth. Your inputs from the unique position as a parent will help us to plan and implement an educational plan that meets the needs of your child. Now he's talking like a principal. An open dialogue, feedback, and sharing of information between parents and teachers will enable us to work with your child in the most effective manner. Okay. At the end, I actually understood what he was talking, but the first sentence was a disaster. This principal doesn't know how to write. This is the kind of communication I really don't want to receive, unique though my parent inputs might be. What I want to be told is that the school is going to make it easier for me to telephone the teachers, and that they hope I'll call often to discuss how my children are getting along. Instead, the parent gets junk. Special phone communication system. Added emphasis to the goal of communication. Plan and implement an educational plan. As for open dialogue, feedback, or sharing information, those are 3 ways of saying the same thing. So Dr. Jones is clearly a man who means well, and his plan is one we all want. A chance to pick up the phone and tell the principal what a great kid Johnny is, despite that unfortunate incident in the playground last Tuesday. But Dr. Jones doesn't really sound like a person I really want to call or talk to. In fact, he doesn't really sound like a person at all. His message could have been tapped out of a computer. He's squandering a rich resource himself. He could have done this better. That's the kind of talk a parent doesn't want. It's also what stockholders do not want to hear from their corporation. It's not what customers do not want from their bank. It's not what a widow does not want to from the agency that's handling her social security. There's a deep yearning for human contact and a resentment of bombast. Just be straight and human. Look at this letter from a company that supplies computers. It says, "Dear customer, effective March 30, we will be migrating our end user order entry and supplies referral processing to a new telemarketing center." What the hell? You really need to think hard to finally figure out that they had a new 800 numbers and that the end user was you. Now, any organization that won't take the trouble to be both clear and personal in its writing will lose friends, customers, and money. Let me put it another way. For a business executive, a shortfall will be experienced in anticipated profitability. Another one. Here's an example of how companies throw away their humanity with pretentious language. It's a customer bulletin distributed by a major corporation, and the sole purpose of a customer bulletin is to give helpful information to the customer. But this one goes like this. Companies are increasingly turning to capacity planning techniques to determine when future processing loads will exceed processing capabilities. That sentence is no favor to the customer. It's full of Orwellian nouns like capacity and capabilities that convey nothing, no procedures that a customer can picture. What are actually capacity planning techniques? Whose capacity is being planned? By whom? And then the second sentence goes, capacity planning adds objectivity to the decision-making process. More dead nouns. There's the third sentence. Management is given enhanced decision participation in key areas of information system resources. Oh my God, this is really bad. The customer has to stop after every sentence and translate it. The bulletin might as well be in Hungarian for those who do not speak Hungarian or any other language. I could not understand anything from this customer bulletin. So let's start with the first sentence. The one about capacity planning techniques. Translated, that means it helps to know when you're giving your computer more than it can handle. So it helps to know when you give your computer more than it can handle. That's, sorry. The second sentence, capacity planning adds objectivity to the decision-making process. So this means you should know the facts before you decide. The third sentence, the one about enhanced decision participation, that means the more you know about your system, the better it'll work. It could also mean several other things, but the customer is not going to keep translating. Soon he's going to go and look for another company. He thinks, if these guys are so smart, why can't they tell me what they do? Maybe they're not that smart. So as soon as you see language like this, you can figure that you're actually dealing with a company or somebody who writes for that company who's really insecure. And here's an example. My son, who's 33 now and unfortunately a journalist, one of my big failures in life, he works for a television network. And when he started appearing on camera and talking, I suddenly watched television. First of all, I heard a completely different voice. People who are insecure, they change their voice when speaking in public. They go deeper. And suddenly my son was going like this, because it somehow, I think he felt he's more masculine when he speaks about like this, and he's more secure, and he's more authoritative when he speaks in this robot voice. But whoever deals with media knows that people who change their voice and appear like this are actually insecure. That's just the tone of his voice. But then he started throwing these phrases in, like capacity planning, objectivity, decision-making process. And we don't talk like this at home. I knew immediately that he's not comfortable doing what he's doing. And, okay, he was pretty frightened. I mean, it came to the point when during his first interview, which was not even live, it was recorded, the person he interviewed stopped the recording and asked somebody to bring a glass of water to the journalist because he was just about to faint. It was so obvious that he is just about to run away. And, and it was even after that interview, when he was done, he went to the toilet, locked himself up and called mom with 33. So you can see when somebody uses this language, he's not really sure of himself. He's not certain, not really there's a lack of self-confidence. The bulletin goes on to say, for future cost avoidance, productivity has been enhanced. That seems to mean the product will be free. All costs have been avoided. Next, the bulletin assures the customer that the system is delivered with functionality, which means that it works. I would hope so. Finally, at the end, we get a glimmer of humanity. The writer of the bulletin asks a satisfied customer why he chose the system. The man says he chose it because of the company's reputation for service. He says, a computer is like a sophisticated pencil. You don't care how it works, but if it breaks, you want someone there to fix it. And, look, see how refreshing that sentence is after all the garbage that preceded it? In its language, those are comfortable words. In its details, that we can visualize the pencil, and its humanity. Now, the secret of good writing is storytelling. Storytelling is the social and cultural activity of sharing stories, sometimes with improvisation, theatrics, or embellishment. Every culture has its own stories or narratives, which are shared as a means of entertainment, education, cultural preservation, or installing moral values. Now, we're all familiar with Greek mythology or Viking, Nordic mythology. The Germans have their mythology. The Indians have their mythology. Almost everybody has his own mythology. And the mythology is part of it's some kind of a group identity. These are stories of the past or of the religion that the group shares, and it is part of the fabric of the group, a nation or a tribe or so on. But it all comes down to storytelling. And it started with stories being told around the fire in the cave, in whatever language they used, or with signs. They were telling stories. And they were telling stories from one generation to another. Those were passed from one generation to another around the campfire. Eventually, they started draw their stories on the walls of their caves. You could see scenes of hunting or hands or something that is actually a story being told through painting. But all of it is a story. As I said, the Bible is a good story. The Quran is a good story. The Torah is a good story. It is actually so good that it mobilized so many people. People are dying and killing each other over stories. Some believe in this story, others believe in that story, and they're ready to die for it. There are several types of storytelling: oral storytelling, visual storytelling, written storytelling, digital storytelling, typically videos that combine audios, images, and video clips to tell a story. But you can also dance your story or use your instrument to play a story. A ballet is a story. You have ballets where nobody ever says a word, but everybody gets the story. The Swan Lake. It's a story that's being danced, nothing else. Now, with oral stories, as I said, they started around the fire. They're conveyed through churches, fairy tales. This is how when parents in the evening read stories to their children, that develops the child's imagination. The child kind of develops the ability to imagine a different reality. And most of the time these days, they're dispersed through radio and now through podcasts. Oral storytelling is now really in with podcasts. And if you really want to hear a good oral storytelling, I recommend this one, to start with this one. Dirty John, Los Angeles Times, and it's a true story about seduction, deception, forgiveness, denial, and ultimately survival. And it has several episodes, and you just can't stop listening to this. Look at all this. This is all one story. It's one of the most awarded and best podcasts you've ever heard of. So I can strongly recommend, if you're into oral stories, Dirty John is a great one. Or what's this one? Wait a second. Why is this not a hyperlink? No, cancel. Sorry, let me see what this is. That was another really good one. Copy. Ah, damn. Okay, here we go. The 9 best storytelling podcasts. If you're doing something, you have your AirPods and you just take a walk or walk your dog, take one of these and listen to how the story has been told and what telling a story is about. Here it says, telling a story is common to most cultures, often in the form of oral histories or religious ceremonies. We tell stories to our children, to our friends, over a few drinks, and in places of worship, just to name a few examples. And now, with the rise of storytelling podcasts, the verbal yarn has become even more persuasive. So go ahead and write this down, podcastreview.org, list best storytelling podcasts. But then you have visual storytelling, and that's what you want to do. Visual storytelling is basically using your photos to tell a story, and who better can do this than National Geographic? And when you go to that, you see these really cool photo essays. Greenland's ice, a photographic eulogy. And then, you know, with every photo that is as amazing as this one, there's a caption and there is a text. See? That accompanies these beautiful photos. The text explains where this is, how this came about. Look. Greenland's ice is in trouble. That's between 2000 and 2016, the colossal island lost approximately 280 billion tons of ice per year, both from icebergs calving off the glaciers and, more unusually, melting from the land fast ice shelf. So we see here a story, photos accompanied with a story of and an explanation of what we're looking at. Look how this melts somehow. I don't know if it does, but it certainly leaves the impression that something is leaking out, something is disappearing. And it's a story about, it's a bad story. It's a story about how icebergs are melting and how all of this is diminishing. But it's essentially, it is a photo essay. See? Taken with drones and so on. Or you can do, look at this, guys, how Slovenia's monsters came back from the dead. And there is a text that explains what we're seeing. It gives us a little bit of that, like, this is what it looks like over there. valleys and rivers and village. And then the tradition, meet the monsters. Who are these fearsome creatures with the power to summon spring? It's about an old tradition, ceremonies of calling the spring. They're called the beautiful ones and the ugly ones, Talepi, Tagrdi, respectively in the local dialect. And each group, along with all of their related characters, plays important roles. Like a springtime welcome wagon, the beautiful ones, depicted as newlyweds, doctors, and other characters, visit homes, offerings, gifts, and indulging in shots of homemade schnapps. To homeowners, these visits promise good luck for the rest of the year. And then, see? An explanation of what we're looking at. Beautiful photo essay. It describes a tradition, describes a belief, and then there's a gallery, and you go on. And you really can feel the festivity in this tradition. How everybody participates. And that's the folklore of a community. And that's a photo essay. That's a story told through photography and text. Look at them. The people behind the masks, very good. Oh, they do some kind of, what is this? Socks filled with ash are playfully used to pummel the boys. It's a custom intended to initiate their entry into manhood. They visit homes, there's music, and you see that this is a accomplished, centuries-long tradition. And, you know, I would love to read about it and to watch these photos. So that's visual storytelling. Then we have written storytelling, and that's where I am. Sometimes, if you work for an agency, as I did, you get tasks. You get a problem in society that you have to describe to the rest of the world. And you go out with your photographer or a cameraman and cameraman to tell the story to the world. My job was to write about that problem. The photographer's job was to illustrate the problem. And that was the same task for the cameraman. Here is how my colleague Rukmini Kalimachi, who was sent to Niger to describe a famine. Now, we heard about the famine in Niger, and now you have to write about it. But how do you describe a famine? You can take pictures of scorched land. That's an option. But the best way to tell the story about the famine in Niger is through people, through desperate people. And Rukmini, where do you go for that? You go to the market. And here is how Rukmini explained to us how bad the famine in Niger is. And she goes, in a part of the world where the worth of a man is measured by his animals, Tuareg nomad Sumaila Vantala has come to this market to do the unthinkable, sell his last camel. He crouches in the shade of a thorn tree as traders huggle over the 4-year-old male animal Yedi. When the sale is complete, Yedi rears his enormous neck and lets out a cry like the deep subterranean call of a whale. It takes 3 men to drag the camel out of the arena, as if he understands the fate that has just befallen his master. All of this, what I read, is a scene and is a lead. You really can picture now, just in 2 paragraphs, you're transferred to the market and to the destiny of this animal and his former owner. And then you go and describe what Yedi and Vantala actually represent. They are just an example of what's going on in Niger. And you go, in markets all over Niger, hungry people are selling hungry animals for half of their normal value, giving up on the milk and money of tomorrow so that their children can eat today. Their plight is a sign of how far the economy of the desert has broken down, leaving its people unable to feed themselves in drought after drought. This is a community so tied to its animals that children play with miniature camels or cows cut from rock. It's in livestock that a man settles disputes, pays the dowry for his future bride, and leaves an inheritance to his sons. This paragraph beautifully tells you what it means to sell your last camel. You don't exist anymore in this society. So to see a nomad sell his last camel is like watching someone sell their house and car, liquidate their 401k, and empty their bank account all at once just to buy groceries. And here's a parallel to our world. To make it understand in a story, if you're writing about a different culture, it is sometimes useful to draw a parallel and to say, he did this, that's as if you would, and then something horrible from your society. Such fire sales are now happening with frightening regularity in cattle markets like this one, poised on the edge of the massive grasslands that run like a ribbon across the neck of Africa. And you have set the scene. You have now told the reader how horrible this is. You have provoked an emotion, and now you can go to the facts. In a normal year, an adult camel like Yedi could sell for as much as $1,600. After spending all day under the thorn tree, Vantala, a 35-year-old who looks like a human stick, was forced to accept half that price. Across the plains, his wife and 6 children were waiting for him under an animal skin tent, their bag of grain nearly empty. It's a deep shock. It's like I've fallen into a hole, said Vantala, but right now I'm hungry, and I need first of all to remove the hunger. Animals in the Sahel act as a buffer, a cushion against hunger. In times of need, a cow or camel provides milk and is also an asset that can be traded for food. 80% of people in this landlocked nation, and virtually all in its rural areas, depend on livestock for some part of their income, according to Niger's Breeders' Association. In a time of drought, The animals lose weight, and nomads literally see their assets shrink. At the same time, the cost of grain goes up. The price of millet, a local staple, is now at record levels. And then it goes la, 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 la. Further down, more description. But you got the idea of how bad the famine is. And, you know, in a well-written story, you go from the individual, from Vantala, and expand the problem. He is the representative of the victim of what is happening, but then you explain what is happening. She expanded not only to Niger, but to whole Africa of what's going on. And she still talks about Niger is no strange to famine, blah, blah, blah. The camel market this spring in Agadez, and then the prices and the plights. And she gives a big picture, but then she goes back. She ends with Vantala as well. One of those people is Vantala, who's facing the end of his nomadic life. Vantala tries not to think of Yedi's pained cries as the camel yanked his head around at the market to look for his master. The Tuaregs say, camels are so attached to their keepers that they must be tied up for 2 or 3 months after they are sold, so they don't run back. Yedi was bought by a Hausa, a farmer belonging to a sedentary ethnic group that lives south of the grasslands. An increasingly familiar sight in Niger is that of a camel pulling a Hausa's plow. Vantala used to make fun of the Hausas, calling them the people who go to the bathroom in the same place where they went last year. Now his clan, which has lost nearly all its camels, has asked the Hausas to teach them how to plant. Vantala holds out his hands as a humiliating reminder of his fall. They are marred by calluses from holding a hoe for the first time. So that's how Rukmini fulfilled her task to describe the famine in Niger. Here's another example. I had to give one of mine. I mean, otherwise you'll think I don't know how to write. I was sent to explain the problem of landmines that were left after the Bosnian War. And here's my story. The last clothes that 6-year-old Tarik Bielic wore hung on the line in his yard. A red Miami basketball jersey, a pair of gray pants, blue size 2 sneakers. And the photographer took pictures of the clothes that little Tarik wore the last time in his life. The blood has been washed off, but the jersey carries the mark of tragedy, a long incision between the I and the A, where doctors tried to get the boy's shattered chest. Tarik was hit by a landmine last week as he scavenged in the forest for firewood to help his family make ends meet. He died in his father's arms. And here you see again, we set the scene, an innocent victim, and then we expand to explain the problem. Under an international treaty, Bosnia was supposed to be free of mines by 2009. Instead, it has quietly obtained another decade to clear the estimated 1,300 remaining square kilometers, about 500 square miles, of minefields. In the 16 years since Bosnia 3-year war ended, mines have killed 591 people. So far this year, 7 people have been killed and 3 maimed. Tarek has been looking forward to starting school wearing a backpack stamped with his favorite cartoon character. Instead, he became his village's sixth landmine victim, the casualty of a war that ended a decade before he was born. Living next to minefields is accepted as a fact of life here. The village was a front line during the 92-95 Bosnian War, and when the residents returned to their homes in 1996, they found their houses devastated, surrounded by minefields. The Bjelic family, like many others in the village, makes a living by selling wood from nearby forests, ignoring signs, bearing a white skull and the warning, "Attention, mines." Familiarity with tragedy doesn't blunt the pain. At the hospital, Tarek's father, Ibro Bjelic, repeatedly whispered, "I wish it would have been me." Bosnia-Herzegovina is one of the most mine-infested countries in the world, said Dusan Gavran, the head of the country's Mine Action Center. He said the only obstacle to making Bosnia mine-free is the cost. We have the capacity, qualified deminers, equipment, but we lack funds. Bosnia's war over its independence from, and then it goes into what the war was about, when it started, who fought whom. The reconstruction, Bosnia needs 40 million euros every year for mine clearing, which it doesn't have, blah, blah, blah. The economy is the key factor. And you go on, and then you go back to the victim at the end of the story, just like Rukmini did to Vantala. Searching for wood with his father, Tarek picked up a branch, apparently setting off the landmine. His father, wounded himself, carried him to a road and stopped the car, which drove them to a hospital. Doctors made a frantic attempt to revive the boy, but it was too late. At the Bjelic home, neighbors gather around the family album looking at Tarek's pictures. One shows him playing with children. In another, he's in a plastic pool playing with a yellow rubber duck. Tarek's younger brother Bakir plays with an old chair in the yard. He will inherit his brother's drying clothes. "Hey," the 4-year-old calls out to mourners walking out of the house. "Do you know when Tarek will come home? It's so boring without him." What I put at the back at the end of the story is the so-called kicker quote. It provokes emotion and it emphasizes the tragedy. And here's another example. This is a story from the Washington Post that shows the change in society caused by COVID-19. Anger and heartbreak on bus number 15. As American cities struggle to recover from the pandemic, Denver's problems spill over onto its buses. And then there's a big picture of the main character. This is the bus driver, Suna. And it immediately starts with Suna. Suna Karabay touched up her eye makeup in a rearview mirror and leaned against the steering wheel of the bus to say her morning prayers. "Please let me be patient," she said. "Let me be generous and kind." She walked through the bus to make her final inspection. Floor swept, seats cleaned, handrails disinfected, gas tank full of another 10-hour shift on the city's busiest commercial road. She drove to her first stop, waited until exactly 5:32 a.m. and opened the doors. "Good morning," she said, as she greeted the first passenger of the day, a barefoot man carrying a blanket and a pillow. He dropped 29 cents into the fare machine for the $3 ride. "That's all I got," he said, and Suna nodded and waved him on board. Happy Friday, she said to the next people in line, including a couple with 3 plastic garbage bags of belongings and a large unleashed dog. Service pet, one of the owners said. He fished into his pocket and pulled out a bus pass as the dog jumped onto the dashboard, grabbed a box of Kleenex, and began shredding tissues on the floor. Service animal? Suna asked. Are you sure? What I tell you already, the passenger said. Just drive the damn bus. She turned back to face the windshield and pulled onto Colfax Avenue, a 4-lane road that ran for more than 30 miles, past the state capitol, through downtown and toward the Rocky Mountains. 45 years old, she's been driving the same route for nearly a decade, becoming such a fixture for Denver's number 15 bus line that her photograph was displayed on the side of several buses, a gigantic smiling face of a city Suna no longer recognized in the aftermath of the pandemic. The Denver she encountered each day on the bus had been transformed by a new wave of epidemics overwhelming major cities across the country. Homelessness in Denver was up by as much as 50% since the beginning of the pandemic. Violent crime had increased by 17%. Murders had gone up 47%. Some types of property crime had nearly doubled, and seizures of fentanyl and meth had quadrupled in the past year. And so on and so on. And the article really is accompanied with pictures, see, what she sees out of a bus, and another world that she encountered on Route 15 after the pandemic. See? This is what the pandemic did. A long story, but a very good one. Here she is. There's another homeless person behind her. This is what she sees now in the buses. People are rude and desperate. And that's good storytelling. Now that's written storytelling. Digital storytelling. Digital storytelling is kind of a combination of everything. And here is a good example. This was produced by the New York Times. It's Pulitzer Prize winning project, one of the best examples of digital storytelling on the web. It's no secret, wide, quickly generated interest from millions of users worldwide. It combines a range of formats and features to create a truly immersive experience. The written content delivers a compelling story, images and videos catch the eyes, and interactive map tools give users a chance to be part of the narrative. And look at that story. Snowfall, the avalanche at Tunnel Creek. It's all about an avalanche. And it starts. The snow bursts through the trees with no warning, but a last-second whoosh of sounds, a 2-story wall of white, and Chris Rudolph's piercing cry, "Avalanche! Alice!" The very thing the 16 skiers and snowboarders had sought, fresh, soft snow, instantly became the enemy. Somewhere above, a pristine meadow cracked in the shape of a lightning bolt, slicing a slab nearly 200 feet across it, 3 feet deep. Gravity did the rest. And then there is this compelling story, but it's accompanied.
I had no ability to control what was happening to me. I was being tossed over and over and over. It was like being in a washing machine. I didn't know which way was up. I didn't know which way was down. I couldn't see anything. There were times when I couldn't breathe because there was so much snow, and it was just like void of air. I definitely thought that after being caught in it for a little while, holy moly, this may be the end. This is it. Are you serious? This is really the way I'm going to die?
It has video. It has these beautiful, how it shows you exactly with this drone footage or whatever it is. Or is it I don't even know what this is, but it gives you a beautiful sense of where this happened, what happened, where they were. You don't have to picture anything. It's all there. And here are some pictures. And more pictures, videos. And it all intertwines with the story. View slideshow. Come on, view slideshow. It doesn't want to open. Sorry. Oh, bummer. Anyway, there's a slideshow. And that's, see what that looked like from above? It's a beautiful. Here's the next part. To the Peak, part 2. It's just such a long and well-told stories with victims, with experts. It's all there. Now that is an example of a digital storytelling. Here's another one. This digital storytelling example is a great example of how a website alone can be used to create a fascinating story. This one takes users on a journey through a well-loved Gucci collection. Integrating sleek design with interactive elements and a simple narrative, this project explains the process of creating the, I don't even know how to read this, Savoir Flair collection, all while guiding audiences toward the final destination where they can purchase products from the line. So Gucci did really a good job here. I can't believe my eyes. Introducing the Gucci Epilogue collection. See, it has videos and a story, an explanation of what is. Look at this. And here's a video. Cool. And so on. How do I get back here? Oh, well. Okay, well. See? The egg, I don't know what that represents, but it's filled with videos and like weird stuff they're wearing. I'm not quite sure I like it, but it's a good presentation. Definitely. And here she is with a unicorn and another video and more videos and like weird stuff. And in the end, you get an information of where you can buy this if you like it. But it's a digital storytelling example. And here you have these handbags and all of that. So that was storytelling. Now, let me finish with one of my favorite speeches about storytelling that I've ever heard, of the power of a story. And I'll just let Tyrion tell you.
What unites people? Armies, gold, flags, stories. There's nothing in the world more powerful than a good story. Nothing can stop it. No enemy can defeat it. And who has a better story than Bran the Broken? The boy who fell from a high tower and lived. He knew he'd never walk again, so he learned to fly. He crossed beyond the wall, the crippled boy, and became the three-eyed raven. He is our memory, the keeper of all our stories, the wars, weddings, births, massacres, famines, our triumphs, our defeats, our past. Who better to lead us into the future?
Wonderful. Thank you, Aida, so much for this super inspiring. Really appreciate every second of it, and really to share with us great examples. We got some feedback from students. They are excited and really already asking when can we hear it again. So thank you.
No, they didn't fall asleep. That's really
no, we didn't. And I think we were all laughing at times and paying a lot of attention, because it's such an important skill. And how to sometimes simplify. I think the first part we were all really paying a lot of attention, because we do tend to complicate with words, and we think it will really enrichen the whole story, and it really makes it much more complicated than it is. So I think we all learned a lot with all of this, and also different types of storytelling, and also all these examples of how you can approach one story, because it's sometimes one story can be published in different media. You can have it in social media, on platforms, in the paper, or even maybe in a gallery, in festivals, because there's so many platforms right now. So I think it's a great insight on what great storytelling is and what great writing is. So really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions?
We don't have any type questions, but what we do usually at the end of each session of continuing education is that we promote our alumni to speakers. So if they want to, they can join us as panelists. And if they have a question, they can ask it in person. So I'll ask Gianna also to help me a little bit promoting our participants to speakers. I know not all of them will join us, but yes, those that can speak will usually have their microphone and video. What I would just alert everyone is that Aida will also have a workshop on the topic of writing on the 29th of November. All the details on how to apply are on our mute. Daniel, I'll just mute you for a second. Apologies. But yeah, all of the details on how to apply are on our website. You will have to send 2 texts, one of your own and one that you really admire, that you appreciate, and then you will see with Aida how the workshop will go. But Aida, I don't know if you would have any comment on the workshop in 3 weeks.
What we could, it's basically practicing. And, you know, the reason why I told you at the beginning of this lecture of how I actually really could not write. I mean, I didn't even read, let alone write. You know, everything can be learned. And you should really not, in order to learn, it's like a language. In order to learn a language or to learn how to write, the first thing you have to do is take the crown off your head and put it down. Okay? Nobody's going to laugh at you, the least me, because in my superior office in Vienna, there's a wall of shame, and half of it is my texts. I don't care, you know. I just, okay, it sucks this time, you know, maybe next time it'll work. And then somehow you get into the routine, and at some point, one day, somebody calls you and says, hey, would you tell our students how to write? I was like, me? Yeah. When I look back, yeah, I learned how to write by writing, and basically not being embarrassed about all the mistakes I make. You introduced me as someone who writes for also scripts. Well, I wrote 1 script and did 1 movie, and I'm never going to do it again. And I think that after that experience, whatever actors ask in terms of payment is not enough with what they have to put up with. I also wrote a book, and when I read it myself, I concluded that it really sucks, and I have never mastered the strength or the time to edit it so it's readable for other people, because it's something like a memoir, and what came out was some of my wartime traumas. And if I read that text one more time, I'm going to vomit. So you're never going to read my book. So don't be embarrassed. You know, it's just, I just showed you great examples of writers that I admire, excluding my text. Writers I admire, and I wanted you to do the same thing. Write something, even if it sucks. It doesn't matter. Just send it really short, you know. Make it like 500 words maximum, a story about something, and we will read it together and then see if we can improve it together. We'll be editing together. I'm an editor now, and I think that editing is very boring, so I like to do it with the writer. And very often I change the sentence or the structure, and then I look at it and it's actually worse. The writer did it much better than I did. So I keep like a back to the original text. So there's no crown. I make mistakes. I don't know how to write about certain things, and I struggle with it. And, you know, let's just struggle together. So write a short text, and we'll take a few examples, and we'll practice on it. But also send me some texts that you admire. Now, like, I wish I could write like this guy or like this woman. And we'll see, what is it that you really like about those texts. That's all. And that's going to be the exercise, and it's going to be fun. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's great that you mentioned this. They are asking, Bhumika is asking if there's anything specific they should write about.
Are you photographers all?
They are all photographers, yeah.
Okay. So I'm sure you have done photo essays. Write a short story to go with your photo essay, like the one we have just seen, you know, because that's what you're going to be, that is what you're going to be doing. So you have to explain, you have to tell a story that goes with your photos. Select a couple of pictures that you really like 4 or 5, not more. And then give me a 500-word story that go with those photos. That's it.
Yeah, I would say even it can be series you were working on during your courses or something you're
Yes.
working on now. I know a lot of you have already descriptions of your series that you presented, so work on that and yeah, submit it. My question would be, Aida, if the text they admire have to be of from media, or it can be, let's say, a short story, a part of a book, anything, right?
Whatever you like.
All right. Then I have 2 comments first, because I think, yeah, they are very, very nice. James is saying that this was fascinating. Loved the humor and self-depreciating tone. Writing is like killing your own children or rescuing them. Very difficult. I'm terrified every time I have to do it. Very hard to self-edit.
Oh, tell me about it. No, seriously. I am regarded as someone who apparently can write and is writing well. Trust me, if I would be born again, I'll be an architect or something else. I'm not going to be a writer. It's so hard, but it's possible to master it. This was one of my favorite workshops. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I laughed and I was totally tuned in throughout. Oh, nobody fell asleep. Thank you so much. How do you think poetry can fit into storytelling along with photography? Whoa. Also, even singing. Yes, creating a poem and then singing it along with visual images. Oh, what a great idea. Do you have any experience on doing this type of work more artistic? No, but let's explore. Do you? Do that. Do that next time and we'll kind of, yes, and we'll enjoy it. How do you start? What's the preparation you undertake? Do you organize it first in bullet points, or do you just start writing and keep going? Okay, here's. You talk to people, you look at the problem or whatever you want to write about. And I was taught as a journalist to take notes and to tape all of my interviews. But I realized that I'm just going to tape my interviews. I'm not going to take notes. Because when I leave the scene and when on my way back to the office or home, the stuff I remember is the important stuff. What impressed me in the conversation? What impressed me about the situation? And sometimes I interview people, and what impresses me the most is their knotted hands, is the way they tell me about their destiny. There are victims, for example, from the war who keep talking and talking, and all I see is this, how they kind of, what they do with their hands. It's obvious trauma, and that's how I start. As so-and-so was talking, I don't know, she was almost breaking her fingers. And it's an emotion. It is what impressed you the most in this situation. That's what you start with. And in a feature story, that's what you describe first. That's how I start. I don't really prepare. I mean, I interview people and I go and look around and see the scene so I can describe it later. And then when I sit down, do I organize? You know, I tried so many times to organize it in bullet points. And every time I made a structure, it never worked out this way, but it's good to try. I usually just keep going. And then when I read it again, I see there is absolutely no structure. And then I reorganize. I write graphs and then I put one up and then it doesn't make sense. And I put it back down. And, you know, I basically move paragraphs up and down. That's why, that's how I write. And it hurts. It physically hurts. I really love this wait a second. What have I, I really love this because, to be honest, I'm always scared of writing. Me too. But I would love to add poetry to photojournalism. Is that possible? Let's try. I never did it, but we can try together. In these times of flooding, never-ending information, how do we find our own sincere voice? I don't know. I don't know. Just, you know, if you have something to tell the world, just tell it. And that's your voice. Don't pretend to be someone else, like my son who changes his voice. Like, good evening. Who the fuck is that? Sorry. But just be yourself and, you know, pretend you're telling a story to your grandma. Pretend and try that. That should be your sincere voice. What about a monologue along with the photo story? Yeah. Have you ever done anything like that or heard about it? No, let's do it. Maybe it'll work. Maybe, yeah, no, I have not. But it could be really interesting. A monologue, like photos, and then what you have to say about them, and from your perspective, that could be really interesting. Let's do it. Aida, I love how honest and authentic you are. Thank you. Mwah. I love you too. I love the keeping it simple, being yourself and telling the story. Yeah, just be simple. You know, no. I'm relatively new copywriter for an online company, and I spend a lot of time ensuring that every single thing we show the public is simply written and correct grammatically. Yeah, that's important. However, the owner of the company likes to post on our channels in her own time and is a horrible writer. I think this is very detrimental to the brand, but I've been told that it's not a big deal and that nobody really cares if we mess up there and there in public view. I highly disagree. Oh my God, that's so important. Do you agree? And what effect can poor sloppy writing have on our personal brand as photographers or photojournalists, if any? Oh, you're totally discredited. If you can't even write a simple sentence without making mistakes, grammatical mistakes, nobody will believe you because you're illiterate. And, you know, it is so easy now with artificial intelligence. Just put it in chat and just correct the grammar. And it'll come out with correct grammar. I don't believe people who can't even master their own language to write what they want to say. It's kind of illiterate. You have if this is your only way to present yourself, these couple of sentences, do you really want to come across as illiterate? Like, if you don't know there and there, I don't think you know anything. So yes, you're totally right, Nate. You know, this is very damaging. And I don't know what you can do about it, but I totally agree with you. So that would be my answer. Did I?
No, I would add, Aida, that yeah, here, because we are in the community, know that you always have fellow alumni that are either native speakers, or you can even ask us. I will not obviously be able to edit texts, 10 texts a day, but if you need help with language, with anything, ask us in the community, ask fellow alumni. This is why the community is far. We do know that not all have the same English level if you're writing in English, but there's really ways, as Aida says, to correct, to improve, and then also learn on your mistakes. As you say, there's always, yeah, I still check sometimes some words after 10, 15 years, but yeah, you know they have to be checked, so that's a good exercise already. Yeah.
Oh, if there would be, I'm working for 30 years and I'm only writing in English. And if there would be no spell check on docs, I would be fired a long time ago. So it's not that, you know. And now with AI, easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see Manon has a raised hand. Like, if you alumni want to turn on your cameras, I'll now do the view in a gallery view, so we can all see each other in in different view. But if you want to turn on cameras and your microphones, you're free to do so. Manon, I see you have a raised hand, so you can.
Yeah, so I couldn't resist myself, Ida. It was lovely meeting you. You are so authentic, natural, and you are just so passionate about what you do. So I thoroughly loved the whole time. Thank you so much. I'm glad that I attended your workshop. So this is me who wrote about the monologue. So I really want to be connected with you. So if possible, please share your email address. I would love to share some of my ideas, and I'm not good at writing, but I'm a visual artist. So I need to, for grants, for funding, we have to write. There is no other way. So, but I want to improve myself.
There it is.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And whatever I can help with. But that's an interesting idea. Let's play with it. Monologue.
Yeah, I would encourage you, Manon, to really apply for the 29th for the workshop. Prepare something on this topic, how you want to write, and then let's see, right?
I will definitely. I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Can't wait to hear and see. Actually, okay, let me tell you. I have no idea what we're going to be doing at that workshop, but let's improvise and just toss your ideas, send me your photos, whatever you want, actually, because I don't really have a structure for the but I constantly think, well, it's on the 29th. I'll come up with something. So come up with something too.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. This is Joya, and I found your humor fantastic, and I nobody lost touch with you. So I appreciate you being able to stand in there and keep smiling when you had nobody smiling back at you. And one of the things that I was wondering is we have to write artist statements or project statements, and I didn't know whether you knew that language. And in statements, I believe, can be written in many different ways, like you were suggesting an essay, or sometimes it's more of a documentary idea, similar to the articles that you were reading. So might that also be something that you would want to read from us?
Yeah. Give me whatever you want.
Great.
And we'll play with it. Is it a monologue, poetry, haiku, a feature story, news story, a love letter, whatever the hell you want? Just write it and we'll enjoy it.
Cool. Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to myself all the time. I'm not used to this. Usually this is live and we kind of laugh and cry together, but it wasn't that bad. I wish I could have seen your faces and get some feedback, but I got the feedback in the end and it's nice. I see whoever fell asleep is not hearing this, so fine. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, we have some more compliments. They are still asking to share your address, which we did, but we will do it.
I did.
Yeah, I'll just send it again here. So that's it. But yeah, as I said, we will have a workshop with Aida. I just obviously I know Aida is open to also advise, but yeah, there's also a reasonable amount of emails to send to our guests, just to alert you a bit, because I assume, Aida, you're extremely busy, so you will not have time for each individually, but that's why we do workshops. And sometimes when the workshops are really in demand, we will start this two-part workshop. So we will have them, let's say, now it's November, and then maybe repeat it in February, rewatch the recording, and then have another workshop. So we will have more workshops on this topic, so no worries that you'll miss anything. Yeah, but
okay.
Yeah, so
Cool. I will be very busy until the 22nd. On the 22nd, I'll have a surgery and I won't be able to walk for 6 weeks. So you can harass me as much as you want because I'll be home doing nothing. So go ahead and open for whatever.
Aida, you've made me laugh so much. This has been more than delightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I wish this would be live. Oh my God, I'll hug you all.
Yeah,
Okay.
just sending a lot of love. I see even James, Taco, everyone is super inspired, I think, and I think everyone now will really start writing the text that they will submit. I think this was so inspiring. Aida, really, thank you for all the dedication, all the time.
And you will suffer just like me. Thank you all. It's okay. You know, everybody suffers. Don't think. No, whoever tells you that he writes and it's a piece of cake, he's lying. Seriously, I'm doing this for 30 years and it feels like being in labor. Seriously. So, but in the end, it somehow works out. It actually, when I look back, the texts that I would send, I would think, oh my God, this sucks. And it would be really, people loved it. I don't know. Sometimes you're more critical yourself than others are. But we'll work on this. See you next time.
Thank you so much, Aida, and see you in 3 weeks.
We'll see you definitely, Aida. Don't worry.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.